I just got back from Texas, and so I'm a little homesick. I just moved to Virginia in August, as many of you know, and I never would have imagined that 40 Days for Life would have gotten so big that it would have caused me to tell my in-laws that I had to drag their daughter and my 3 kids up to Virginia to live closer to David B. Wright, but that is what has happened, and I thank God for it every day. You cannot imagine what it's been like to see this one little campaign start in Bryan, Texas, and go to 337 cities in all 50 states and 9 countries. And it's just been an absolute joy to come to places that are essentially the most hopeless places on earth. The places where the greatest joy, the greatest love is dehumanized every single day and made into a mere choice. And I remember one time I was in Moses Lake, Washington, and I asked this gentleman how he got into the pro-life movement. He worked in the medical field, and he said that he worked in a hospital. He worked in a Catholic hospital, and his job was to take, to receive the organs that had been removed in typical surgeries. And one day there was a mix-up with the FedEx package that he received, and he received a package that was supposed to go to a secular hospital but came to the Catholic hospital. And when he pulled one of the bags out, it was basically a Ziploc bag, and it had a 13-week-old baby in it, and who had died from a saline abortion. And he began to tear up. He was away from his faith, and as he looked at this baby, he noticed the label that was on the Ziploc bag, and the label said product of conception. And he began to do what any one of us would do in that situation. He began to weep at this innocent child who lay before him dead, labeled a product of conception. And he thought, how far have we fallen that this is what we call the most innocent among us? 2 days ago, I was giving a speech with the former Planned Parenthood director, Abby Johnson, and she shared a story with me that I had never heard her share before, and it was about the first time that she was asked to become director of the Planned Parenthood abortion facility that she ended up running for 4 years. And what had happened is her director at the time had asked her, are you ready to see one? And as a volunteer escort, as a part-time worker at Planned Parenthood, she had never seen an aborted baby. And so the director asked her, do you want to see one? And so she kind of toughened herself up and as a pro-choice advocate, and went in and looked at this 13-week-old baby boy. And she immediately became stunned by the fact that it was put together, because this was the room where the babies were put together to make sure all the parts were there. And it was a baby boy. And Abby said to the director, isn't this a miracle? Isn't it a miracle how we go from this to this? From something in a tray to something living. And she looked up, and the director was just sort of staring at her, and the director said to her, I knew you were the one. I knew you were the future of Planned Parenthood. And she said, well, why do you say that? And she said, because you're the only person in the last 10 years who has looked at what you just saw and what you just looked at and never cried. You're the only person that's ever seen a 13-week-old baby in this abortion facility and not teared up. And Abby, of course, swelled up with pride. And she felt so proud of herself and so dignified that she could handle abortion. She felt mature. And the lady said, one day you're going to be the director of this clinic. And indeed she was. And that day when Abby drove out of that abortion facility and then eventually came back the next day for work, as she reflected upon that day, she thought, that is what I was proud of, is my hardness of heart and the coldness that I had towards the most beautiful thing that we have to offer. That was her pride. And imagine when she saw this 13-week-old baby on an ultrasound machine lose his life 4 years after that day, and then walk right next door into my office in repentance and remorse. Imagine that contrast. And as she was telling me this story, she was tearing up. She was crying because she thinks back to the long journey and the long road everybody starts off supporting abortion out of the name of compassion and mercy. Abortion does not come to us with tanks and Nazis and slavery. It comes to us with compassion, and it comes to us with the idea that because of your circumstances, you don't have to have a child. And so we have power over that child and our will. If we want the baby, the child is a blessing and a joy. And if we don't want the baby, it's a choice and a liberty. It is the most dangerous mentality that Earth has ever seen, and we have never been able to overcome it. It is always the source of the most radical and horrific injustices that we've ever seen, when we dehumanize an entire segment of our population. That's where prayer and truth and joy have to come in. And that's why we come to this little slab of concrete and we bring joy to a place that has no joy. And we bring life to a place that has no life. So many people probably drive by and they think, these people are idiots, they're wasting their time, they could be doing so many other things. And I don't know if you're wasting your time because I don't know what else your schedules are full of. But it can't be full of things that are more important than what you're doing here today. Whether you come out an hour a week, whether you come out 5 hours a day during this 40-day time period, or like many of you, perhaps you're out here most weeks throughout the entire year, you never regret spending time in prayer at an abortion facility. Because no one grows up wanting to work in the abortion industry, and no one grows up wanting an abortion. They come because of fear, they come because of despair, they come because of a loss of hope. And you represent the only real hope left, which is you do not have to do this today. There is a love and a hope greater than what abortion sells. I remember the first time I ever prayed in front of an abortion facility, I was overwhelmed with what I didn't see. Because what you expect to see, and I think what a lot of people expect to see, is the relief that abortion promises. Any one of us would pay $400 or $500 to have your greatest worry taken away, to have something that could endanger your future removed. And that's what abortion promises us. Whether it's a financial situation, whether it's a woman in college, whether it's a woman that is being abused in some form or fashion, we have seen every scenario possible come into our office. And yet, you disrupt that lie by showing them that there is love, that there is hope. And abortion is such a huge temptation these days because that's what it promises. It promises a lie. And yet when you see women leave, relief is the last thing on their face. Many of them are crying, and many of them have to go back and see that not only are they're no longer considering abortion, they're no longer discerning abortion, they're no longer talking to their friends about abortion, they have had an abortion, and relief is the last thing that abortion brings. That's why post-abortive women and women that have had abortions have been such a faithful witness to the pro-life movement to show that abortion is not good for women. I know that coming out here sometimes cannot be easy. Not everybody thinks that it's just so great and wonderful that you're here. But it's so important because first off, it should be warmer. I understand. I've never had an April where it wasn't 85 degrees. But when you are here, you give witness to all these women. You're the last sign of hope, certainly for the baby who's scheduled to be aborted here. But you're also the first sign of mercy for the women who leave. And you're also a great sign for the escorts and for all the people who work in this facility, because they need us to be lunatics. They need us to be radical because it forces the attention off of what we're here for, which is the abortion itself. We're not here to demonize the workers. We're not here to demonize the women. We are here to point to the issue at hand, which is that an innocent human life that is completely unrepeatable will be destroyed and lost forever. And so while the irony with people driving by saying you're crazy and you're wasting your time and you should be doing something else, when you look at it from the standpoint of reason, and you look at it from the standpoint of what's the logical thing to do, you're doing the only thing that makes sense, which is showing up where you have a legal right to show up and to offer your prayers, to offer your support, and to give witness to somebody who is about to lose their life, and give witness to somebody who thinks that their only option is to destroy the greatest gift that is living within them. And so be encouraged. Come here with joy. This is a sobering spot because of what goes on inside, but it's only frustrating. It only drives us to an unhealthy anger if we do nothing. And we can only do our part. And that's why the 40 Days for Life has a beginning and it has an end. And many times we see that obviously we want people praying out here 365 days a year, but we can do our part. We can take an hour a week or 5 hours a week or whatever. And I know that we have 2 weeks left in the 40 Days for Life campaign. We are currently, many of you know that we have had 43 abortion clinic workers have conversions and leave their jobs. Right now we are working with 7 abortion clinic workers. One of them is another Planned Parenthood director.
Yeah.
And I am meeting with her next week, so please keep me in your prayers and her. And we just see all of the fruit that is coming out. This is the largest 40 Days for Life campaign we've ever had. 247 cities doing this all at once. And typically the spring is our weaker campaign. It's where we have less cities, but we just see each campaign grow and grow between the fall and spring, and it's the momentum. It's people being encouraged and renewed by coming out here and doing their part. So I cannot thank you enough. I know with 2 weeks left, some of you may have been out here every single day since March the 9th, or at least once or twice a week since March the 9th, and I can't wait till April 17th when we celebrate Passover and our Lord coming into Jerusalem. He's welcomed as a king, only to be killed 5 days later. And many times that represents our journey out here. You have many highs, you have many lows, and yet we hold on to what is true, which is our faith in God and knowing that no one loves these children more than He does. So God bless you. Thank you. And if there's a way, it would be great. I want to be sure that I get to meet all of y'all and also get some pictures. So I've never been to this location before. You have a great location and very visible. So God bless you.
Thank you.